Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And I'm Jim.
And this is Zenithet Podcast, where we all die because this week we watched Blake.
Written by Chris Boucher.
Directed by Mary Ridge.
And aired on December 21st, 1981.
What a Christmas treat for us all.
What a Christmas treat. I think this is going to go out on the...
26th?
No, 24th. Christmas Eve.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what dates are anymore.
Well, actually, no. Hang on. Wait, 15? 16?
No, it's going to go out on Christmas.
This is going to go out on Christmas.
Heck yeah.
Christmas treat. Everybody's dead.
They should have all worn Santa hats in this episode, preempting, this podcast 40 years later.
We should have worn Santa hats during this episode.
No, don't reveal that we're not. Well, maybe Jim is.
It's true, maybe Jim is.
I'm wearing two Santa hats.
Whoa. Advanced Santa hat level tactics.
Santa hat stacking.
Right, so we're joined this week by Jim of the Crinoid podcast on Doctor Who and of no podcast on Blake 7.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah, fair point.
In 5 or 6 years' time, when the Crinoid podcast is destined to finish, when we've covered all the classic Doctor Who stories, we are very likely to go on to do a Blake 7 one.
Well, that's exciting.
So there you go.
Well, when you get there, and if you're ever looking for anybody to be on, shoot us an email.
Now that we're seasoned.
I can think of a couple of people already who might be interested.
There can never be enough Blake 7 podcasts in this world.
Well, not many, are there? And they'll all finish by the time by several years, but by the time we do ours.
That's right. I think Down and Safe still probably won't put out an episode.
Yeah, we might get started before they get to the next episode. That's right.
I think they're going on almost a year now. Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years, because it was already almost a year when we started. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Never mind.
Yeah. But anyway,
it was fun while it lasted, wasn't it?
Fun while it lasted. Yeah, so this week, Blake.
The final episode of the show.
Yeah, we finally made it.
We were finally there to sit on our thrones as the
what?
I don't know, the finished Blake 7 podcast. I was trying to do a Fresh Prince type thing, but it didn't work out.
Questionable decision. Start rapping in a minute.
Well, we did have that plan, on our retrospective episode too.
That's not. Once we mention it on recording, then it becomes official. And
well, luckily you have DJ Jazzy Jim with you at the moment, so I'll put down some harsh, tasty beats for you to rap over.
Basically, the thing was, I guess we're just gonna say it. After we finished recording the Sergeant Drano episode, afterwards he's like, "You guys should." He suggested we record Distant Star
with all of our guests. With all the past
guests.
You must do that.
And then it was about a week later, Keon texted and he was like, I realized that's going to be a terrible idea.
I was on board for like a week.
Spoil sport.
You were on board for a week? I was on board for like 2 hours.
Well, Jim, you realize that means you're sort of implicated in all of this too. You would have to join in the recording as well.
DJ Jazzy Jim.
Yeah,
he can produce.
Some terrible technical fault that stops me from taking part. I can predict it somehow.
John gets off the hook because we could just use his version from.
His version was out of time with the official song, though, but I had to edit. I had to edit it to sound like it was in time. I had to speed up part of his vocals.
Wow, so having George Martin sorting the Beatles out.
We could give everybody cool techno DJ names. We got DJ Jazzy Jim. We got DJ Space Cop. That's me.
Right. Oh God, that's a reference. And nobody would get except me. And that we're not going to explain.
Keon West.
Yeah, sure.
Keon West.
At least I get to be the musical genius and new king of pop in all of this.
Great. Oh man. Anyway, let's get to the actual episode at hand because I have things to say about Blake. Not just the episode, but the character too.
That's good. It might be a quiet podcast if you didn't.
Yeah, I have nothing to say. It begins like right in the middle of the action. We get the sequence of Scorpio taking off for the must be like the 7th time this season.
But it's a different sequence this time, isn't it? Or am I just...
No, it's just extended. It's just got more shots of Scorpio taking off, but otherwise it's the same.
Different.
It's great, though, isn't it? It's really good.
It is really good.
It is really good.
And then we get Xenon base exploding, and I'm like, wait, did they like ditch the base and blow it up? And yeah, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, it turns out Ziona had no reason to die because they were going to ditch the base anyway. When you think about it.
Another pointless Blake 7 death.
Maybe that's why Avon was so smug at the end of Warlord. It's because Ziona died, but he knew that they were going to blow up the base anyway.
Just really wanted to get that in for Tarrant.
God, I kind of feel bad about all the bad things I've said about Tarrant over the past 13 weeks, given this episode. Yeah, I kind of do.
Wow.
He
you have more
suffers.
heart than I do.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he comes through in this one, doesn't he?
Yeah.
As not being a complete arse as he has in previous episodes.
Look, as he tries to redeem himself.
He does redeem himself. I think he does. I forgive him.
I don't.
Well, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, it is.
Merciless.
Merciless.
So Avon explains what's going on. He's like, of course we couldn't leave Xenon base intact. Because they don't trust Zucan.
To not come back and kill them all.
Well, they didn't trust. I think the reasoning was that they didn't trust that Zucan hadn't already revealed the location of the base.
To presumably Servalan.
Right.
Who is conspicuously absent from this episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of expected her to show up at the end to gloat.
I mean, I already knew she wasn't in this. I spoiled it long ago.
Didn't.
But if I hadn't spoiled that, I would have probably guessed that she would show
Yeah, that
up.
was a decision, wasn't it, from Chris Boucher and I think what's his face, the producer?
Veer Lorimer.
Is Veer Lorimer the producer of this season?
Yeah,
Veer Lorimer, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it decided that there'd been so much Servalan that it would be a kind of surprise if she doesn't turn up in the final episode. Because we all knew this was the final episode of the series at the time. We didn't know it was the final episode ever, I don't think.
Well, we made it pretty clear.
Well, by the end, you're fairly clear that at least most of them aren't coming back, if any of them.
But see, I have a way out for them for my fantasy Blake 7. I have a way out.
Well, here, this is the thing is that, over this past year, I've seen people discuss how like it's not definitive that they all died at the end, and I didn't know like the circumstances of their deaths and everything, but like when I got to the end, when I finished this episode, I was like, all right, people are really reaching for them to still be alive. It's pretty much certain that they all died.
Well, Chris Boucher's always. Well, I'd be interested to hear that. But Chris Boucher has always said that he had a way of bringing back any character that, if the actor of that character wanted to return, he had a way of doing it.
I really hope it's just what they would be. I really hope it's just the clones. There was that clone of Blake still running around the universe.
Yeah, you mean the one who died in this episode?
Yeah. I really hope it's they're all just dead and then they're just like robots. Project Avon. Not even clones, just robots.
All the shots were non-fatal.
Or they're secret twins that like everybody got this season and lost.
They're just Tesselecta.
They're the Tesselecta. We just watched that Wedding of Ever song. Ooh.
That train wreck. I'm just kidding. I kind of liked it.
I think it's messy. Anyway.
It's very messy. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim, for being on my side with this one. Jim, how do you feel about the Scorpio flight deck before we continue? Do you like it or do you dislike it?
I think it's something you get used to. I mean, it's nowhere near the quality of the Liberator one, but yeah, they're all kind of in a row. It's quite easy to shoot them all. If you shoot from the front, you get everyone looking in the way of the camera, don't you? So it's kind of works in that sense, but it does look a bit sort of cheap. And then it's supposed to be. It's just some sort of almost like a cargo vessel, isn't it? This thing. I like it from the outside. I really like the outside of the Scorpio.
Right. Well, the outside's just a smashed Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
But a bit that broke off the Millennium Falcon. But I like it. I mean, you can see the Star Wars influence on it, can't you?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think it was like a tiny Star Destroyer, isn't it, really? But I like it. Just a word on Slave, because I know you guys have been talking about Slave and slightly puzzled about his accent and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I seem to remember reading quite a long time ago a couple of Blake Seven books, and I seem to remember reading at some point Slave is supposed to be based on a character called Uriah Heep from Charles Dickens' David Copperfield novel. I don't know if you know that book very well.
David Copperfield.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I know of it. Right.
Well, Uriah Heep is this kind of upwardly mobile sort of Cockney character, working class Cockney character. Really obsequious, he's always saying about, I'm ever so humble and all this kind of stuff. So he's like Slave in that respect. And there's a quite famous BBC production of David Copperfield in 1974, like a TV series adaptation of it. And Martin Jarvis, who we know from Doctor Who in various roles, he played Uriah Heep in that. And what Peter Tuddenham was doing with Slave in Series D of Blake Seven is very like what Martin Jarvis did for Uriah Heep in that production, which is, I guess, is the most famous British production of it, I think. So that, I think, is where it comes from. Coincidentally, in that series, Gareth Thomas and Jacqueline Pearce appear in it.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, and David Troughton with the Doctor Who connection. But yeah, that's where the voice of Slave comes from.
It kind of lends credit to the fact that Britain has like 5 actors who just appear in everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but thank you for that. Finally, we figured it out. We cracked the code. 13 episodes later. Yeah, well.
Speaking of
Slave?
Well, these extra Blake Seven connections and also these sort of Star Wars connections is that Avon mentions a Rebel Alliance in this opening scene. Do you notice that? I mean,
wasn't that the alliance he was trying to build last week?
Yeah, but I don't think they ever specifically named it the Rebel Alliance, which is like, all right.
Well, at this point, they're like, well, okay, well, the show's canceled, so who cares?
Well, they end up on a kind of Endor planet, don't they, on this?
Yeah.
There you go. Maybe it all fits. Maybe a couple of forests along. Someone was having a sort of speed bike chase.
Did the forest moon of Endor exist by this point? Was episode 6 out by 81?
No. No.
Maybe not. But
77, 80, 83?
Yeah, it was 3-year gaps, I think. Even if it was 2 years, if it was 2-year gaps, it might have been.
But Dagobah existed at this point.
Great.
With a lone hermit, which Blake seems to be at the beginning, but actually isn't.
Blake's just doing what he was trying to do in series A and B, but shittier.
More question mark successfully? I don't know. But Avon hints that he knows where Blake is.
Well, he doesn't hint where he knows where Blake is. He's like, we're going to go find someone, and Villa goes, it's Blake, isn't it? You found him. It's like, wow, thanks, Villa. How'd you figure that one out?
But there's been this quest over this season to enlist experts from various fields, and you got to wonder.
Expert this week is Blake.
Yeah, no, I think it is, and you got to wonder: was this sort of Avon's way of looking for Blake? Has Blake really been haunting the show this entire time? Right. I mean, the show's called Blake 7, but here at the end, it's just Blake. It's not his 7 anymore. It's all about him, and you got to wonder: were series C and D really just all about him in the background to begin with? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
No, I think they were about Avon.
I think C was about Avon.
Descent into madness.
He completes that descent in this episode.
I actually felt sad for Avon at the end of this. It was like sad for his circumstances, sad for his mental decline.
You didn't forgive Tarrant.
No. But I felt sad for Avon.
Your compassion only goes that far, doesn't it?
Yeah. I felt sad for Dana, too, if I'm to be honest.
I felt sad for all of them. I'm not ashamed to say.
Yeah, Dana was
I didn't
never
really feel much for Sulin because we had barely an attachment to her.
We barely knew ya.
You can't kill her. She's lovely.
Too late.
Well,
She's dead.
Sulin reveals in this opening scene that she's actually from, gosh, what's it called?
This
Gouda
planet.
Prime.
Yeah, Gouda Prime.
Yeah.
GP. There's a pointless bit of dialogue, isn't there, when she calls it GP and Avon says, I imagine that's what the locals call Gouda Prime. Yeah, I think we worked that out, thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
That's for any 5-year-olds watching this episode that is about to become a bloodbath at the end.
Any 5-year-olds who are about to be scarred for life.
Yeah. About to be in therapy for the next 40 years.
Who have to start a podcast to work through it all. No.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Working through your trauma, Jim.
Did you actually watch
get
this
over it.
as it aired?
I did. Yeah,
did? Oh.
I was 13 when this aired. It hasn't done me any harm. I mean, I shot up at McDonald's this morning, but other than that, it's been fine.
Whoa!
Sorry, you can edit that out if you like. Yeah. I wouldn't want the police to hear that.
So, what episode of Blake 7 did you start with watching?
I started at an episode called The Way Back.
Wow.
I saw every single episode on transmission.
Wow.
From the age of 9 to the age of 13. Yeah.
Wow, so you were really attached to these characters when they all got brutally murdered on screen. Wow, I can't even imagine.
Well, maybe not Tarrant, but yeah, I was attached to the rest of them. Yeah, that was for anyone who'd been through the lot. That's a massive, massive moment right at the end of this.
Wow.
Hugely traumatizing.
So did you think they were gonna like find a way out of it, or when you watched it, were you like, well, this is the end? It's not. There's no way out of this.
Well, I knew it was the end of the series. I don't think there'd been any announcement that it was going to be the last one, so I wasn't quite sure what's going to happen. I thought Servalan would turn up because I keep talking about the representative of the Federation High Council or something, don't they? Mm-hmm. So I thought, this will be Servalan. She's bound to turn up. It's the last one of the series. She'll turn up. Of course, she doesn't, but something far more harrowing happens instead. And I thought, well, that's it. They ain't coming back from this. And there wasn't. I don't think it was a definitive announcement at the end, but it's pretty obvious. If it ever came back, it would be a very different show. I think possibly Avon might be in it, but you had to guess that no one else would be.
Right.
And they'd have to start from scratch again. The ship's gone, isn't it? Computer is gone. In this case, slave. Aurak is rusting in the woods somewhere. If Perspec's going to rust.
Oh yeah, bummer. Aurak's just
there forever.
Aurak's the only one who survives this, probably definitively. Not that he has a great existence.
Yeah, he's got no one to be snarky to, has he? He'd probably just give up.
He might.
We don't know where his key is, of course.
I assume in Avon's pocket, if I'm to be honest.
The Federation.
Yeah, that would have been shot to pieces.
The Federation might have got him. You never know.
Yeah.
Find him, pick him up.
Yeah, there was tons of troops there by then, weren't there?
But anyway, they head off to Gouda Prime, and we cut to Blake.
Yeah, this is really unceremonious.
Yeah, it's very unceremonious.
Underwhelming, unceremonious, hard cut to Blake. I mean, the title of the episode's Blake.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it'd be a bit of a surprise we hadn't turned up.
It's kind of like every time Doctor Who was like the revelation of the Daleks.
And they try and keep it a secret.
They try to keep it a
episodes.
Secret. There's a big reveal, and you're like, but I already knew.
Oh my god, it's a Dalek.
What a twist.
The people in the show don't know that it's called that, though, do they? So that's the only saving grace.
Blake is cooking a creature of some sort over an open
Like a
flame.
woodland critter.
The Tarrant
It's
would
supposed
beast.
to be a real rabbit, but it's massive, isn't it? It's like a hare or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was supposed to be an alien creature, something that we
What
don't
I
have on Earth.
assumed.
Yeah, but apparently it's a real rabbit that they
I was having
brought in and,
flashbacks to
Justin's
a duel
animals.
barbecue.
during this.
Yeah, very similar. It's a very similar location.
Might be the same forest they're filming in.
Could be.
Could be. Do you notice that Blake's damaged eye is the same one that Travis lost, isn't it?
That's interesting, actually, that you
Yeah.
point that out. I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, and it looks a lot worse in studio than it does on location, that eye injury. Did you notice?
I actually did notice that.
Quality on this episode was
Oh, yeah.
I watched it on YouTube.
Also, the other
was
version we
noticeably
watched, the
worse,
quality was noticeably...
worse than any other episode.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird because I've got the DVDs. A few years ago, they brought out the whole set on DVD, and I've been watching them on an upscaling Blu-ray player. And the studio scenes look great; they're really crisp, really nice. But all those scenes in the forest are really weird. I don't know what film stock they were using, but they're incredibly grainy. It looks like it's almost like a snowstorm over the picture. It's really bad.
I'm imagining they're like out of budget and they're like sitting in the BBC in the BBC archive and like, what like extra scraps of film can we use? Like tearing through like everything they've got, like looking for any piece of film they can use.
Yeah, this one stinks of vinegar, but I'm sure it'll be all right.
We've only got like 10 frames on this one, but we can like attach it to the other tape. It'll be fine.
Now, I thought Blake, for a few minutes, I thought Blake was blind because, well, one, the eye, and two, there's all these references to him not being able to see right. He's looking the wrong way, as what's-her-name mentions, and there's a couple other things as well, where he, like, infers that she's holding a gun rather than actually seeing it or something, but it turns out he's not.
Yeah, it's just kind of anticipating. I think he draws her out of the trees, and they're both looking in the wrong direction.
Right.
He's quite a wily operator by now, I think, Blake.
And do we ever learn this girl's name? She's
Arlen.
Yeah, Arlen.
Arlen,
we
right?
do.
And she's quite a trickster.
We do learn her name because it's a big moment when she's like, Arlen, that's the name they're paying for. And she says, I did a lot to get them to pay for that name, so you better use it.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think of her performance in this?
I thought it was good
it's
right
really
up until
good.
she was revealed to be the mustache-twirling villain of the whole episode.
I liked that.
Can you have a mustache-twirling female villain?
You can now.
I mean, the mustache-twirling trope is less in the actual twirling of the mustache and more in just the...
Figurative.
The figurative over-the-topness
Yes,
cheese factor.
She twirls a metaphorical mustache.
Yes.
Yeah. I think she's a bit dodgy, actually. I was listening to the commentary. There's commentary on this episode of Chris Boucher, Paul Darrow, and Gareth Thomas. And he wasn't very happy with the performance of Chris Boucher because the idea was that she's supposed to be sort of really kind of rough and sort of criminal in this scene, and that makes her, spoilers, she turns out to be a Federation officer at the end. She's then supposed to start talking, receive pronunciation like all the other Federation people and almost everyone else in Plague 7 does. But she's supposed to be a lot rougher at this stage, and she isn't. She just keeps the same voice throughout, doesn't she? But her line delivery, I think, is fairly dodgy at places in this.
Right. I mean, I think it's kind of dodgy when she gets the reveal. She kind of seems to ham it up a bit when she reveals that she's a Federation officer.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a problem with it. I forgive her.
Kind of felt like she was trying to be the next Servalan.
Yeah, well, she looks not completely dissimilar to Servalan. I thought there's something about her that's a little bit like Jacqueline Pierce, but she's no substitute, that's for sure.
For sure. Mm-hmm. But we find this entire sort of situation is preempted, we forgot, by Avon and Sulin explaining the situation on Gouda Prime, which is that the in the past
They were a farming colony.
they were a farming colony, which was
not super productive for farming.
and sort of overthrown by the Federation and turned into this lawless
Well, yeah,
space.
the thing was, like, they discovered a whole bunch of minerals there, and then to, like, not directly drive the farmers out, but to, like, kind of drive them out, they, like, removed all law and order, which caused criminals to rise, so it drove all the farmers out, so the Federation could come into mine, and then apparently Gouda Prime applied for readmission to the Federation, Aurex says 1 week ago.
Yeah, I'm sure that now it's mined out. They're like, all right, now we can establish this farming colony. Right, I think is the
See, the
implication.
problem is with the farming colonies, all these giant rabbits eating all the crops.
And freaking giant forests all over the planet.
Well, that's why they called in the bounty hunters.
No cultivatable land.
There's a really interesting piece of visual framing here that I want to talk about from Mary Ridge, where Avon says that they're bringing law back to Gouda Prime, and he says, thieves, killers, mercenaries, and psychopaths are no longer welcome on Gouda Prime. And as he says each of those words, it frames a specific character of the crew.
Yeah.
So when he says thieves, we get Villa. Villa's a thief. When he says killers, we get Dana and Sulin. Mercenaries, we get Tarrant. But then he says psychopaths, and we get Avon.
Yeah.
And
It's brilliant, isn't it?
I thought that was like a really clever bit of visual kind of metaphor from Mary Ridge there.
Yeah, it's terrific, isn't it? Really good. It confirms everyone's sort of opinion that Avon has just lost the plot by the station.
Yeah. But Blake is acting as one of these mercenaries.
Yeah, Blake is a bounty hunter. Allegedly.
Or, sorry, bounty hunter.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Did you think that he had some sort of crazy scheme? Because I didn't. I for some reason thought he was actually just a bounty hunter now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought he was a bounty hunter, but I thought that he had like lost his mind, and that was why he was just completely
Oh,
mad.
like lost his memory?
No, like lost his like marbles. Like he was just completely mad. Because I was like, Blake would never be a bounty hunter.
Yeah, I thought he'd gone slightly psychotic, and this was his only way of sort of scraping a living, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit psychotic.
Yeah, he uses sort of dubious skills to
he uses
hunt people
dubious
down for money.
methods to test new recruits to his cause too.
Yeah. Yes, very dodgy that, isn't it? That way of doing it. Yeah, must go wrong more times than it goes right, I expect.
Well, the
that's
crew
kind of
seems to be
what-
just him, Diva, and what's her name? So maybe Tarrant was the only one who actually passed.
Well, Arlen
Finally,
passed as
we've
well.
got
Yeah, Harlan.
Yeah, so you see how well that went.
Well, Diva does seem to indicate that this test is like fails more people than it passes.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we could explain that because he gets Arlen back to his base.
Yeah, after killing some of the bounty hunters that are after her.
Yeah, because he's like, I'm the only one who's going to claim the
Right.
money. To allegedly turn her in. And, I didn't quite get what the test was, I'm going to be honest.
I think
It's
it was
not
just
clear, is it really?
no. Really, this entire setup that Blake has created isn't very clear. I mean, he never actually sits down and explains it all. He just sees, "Don't you see, Avon? I set all this up."
I mean, in my mind, he's like this crazy old hermit who like is holding on to the glory days of when he had the Liberator trying to
Oh yeah.
fight back the Federation, and he thinks he's got this resistance force that he's building up that's gonna be super strong that he can like replace Jenna and Callie and Villa and Gan, but really they're like subpar. Nobody's.
Yeah, the only real test, I think, of his testing procedure is when he leaves the gun and those sort of jewels with Tarrant.
Mm-hmm.
And even Tarrant points out, don't you think this is a bit obvious, that you're testing me? And it is, that bit is obvious. It's not quite clear how the rest of it works. You just pretend that you're turning them into the Federation. And then, I suppose at that point, I'd expect him to say, well, I am Federation, so why are you doing that? And then you think, okay, you're not one to recruit, then you kill them. I don't know. I mean, is that how it would work? I don't. It's not really clear.
Well, if that's what it is, then he completely fails with Arlen.
Yeah.
Goes wrong completely. But she obviously knows what she's doing to sort of evade that kind of test.
Well, Arlen seems to be a pretty smart little bugger.
You have to wonder, was she actually Federation, or was she just bluffing? She's like, oh shoot, Federation's going to come in here. Maybe I'll just bluff my way out of this by pretending I am
think she was actually Federation.
I do too, but there's always that hint of, what could have been, I guess.
But didn't she contact them? I mean, I guess I assume that's why all these troops turned up.
Yeah.
Down to her.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, before we get there, we should talk about this hilarious crash sequence, though. Where,
can we talk about the space jumblies first?
Oh, yeah.
Those pursuit ships.
Oh, God, I forgot the Chumblies were a thing.
Yeah, to anyone who hasn't watched Doctor Who Galaxy 4, there's some crappy little robots in there called the Chumblies. That's what these weird spaceships look like. Chumblies in space.
Oh, God, I forgot about the Chumblies.
Well, this is really a parody of Series A and the pursuit ships.
Yeah, this whole episode is kind
works.
of a parody. Self-parody.
And they get shot down. Kind of. They're about to make it, and then Tarrant decides to stay behind while everyone else teleports down, so that they have the chance to teleport down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I really feel for Tarrant here. He really comes back and saves them all.
I think it's the best thing he's ever done in the series, isn't it? Really. And there's that great shot, isn't there, when Avon teleports down, and the camera just focuses on Stephen Pacey, just looking sort of distraught as he's alone and about to, crash Scorpio to his death. Something. Yeah. It's good. It's a good moment.
I mean, but my big question was, why not just slap a teleport bracelet on Tarrant? Then he can control the ship right up till the moment he teleports, and he'll teleport off safely. Like, why not just slap a teleport bracelet on his wrist?
Doesn't he have to? He has to be in the teleport area, doesn't he?
But we see people teleport on and off Scorpio with the bracelets, right? I mean, we saw site-to-site transport using the bracelets, right? It'd be the same thing in principle.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that could have worked. Then he wouldn't have had his hero moment.
Yeah, kind of was one. Yeah, that's why I kind of don't feel sorry for him, because I kind of felt like he was trying to force this hero moment, and I was just like, well, why don't slap a teleport bracelet on? And it kind of felt like he was trying to be like, look, see, I can be a hero too.
I think it works.
Not. Sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say, Avon's not thinking clearly. I mean, he's normally the person who would sort this kind of stuff out. Villa has the idea of abandoning ship via teleport, doesn't he? And Avon doesn't think about giving Tarrant a bracelet. Maybe he doesn't want him to. He doesn't want him to survive. That's quite possible.
I mean, that's kind of the implication you get from Avon a little later when he's talking with the other people, like, "Where's Tarrant?" And he's just kind of dodging the question.
Yeah, several times. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that. I mean, I thought he felt bad about Tarrant dying and him surviving. That's what I got out of all of this, is that he's actually distraught over Tarrant.
I guess if you read it as him acting the same way as when Callie died, when he was just trying to dodge it.
And I do read it that way.
That would be more effective if they had actually built Tarrant up to be more of a rival to Avon than Avon just being superior in every single way right up until orbit.
Well, I mean, I think it works because Tarrant was such a... I don't know, just a nuisance rather than an actual threat to Avon, but at the end, Avon sort of acknowledges him, as a member of the crew. Even though he's not actually dead. He survived somehow.
Yeah, Avon did look really disappointed when he saw Tarrant alive. Yeah, it's quite possible that he gained some respect from him in that moment. Saving the others and sacrifice himself. He's going to go up in Avon's estimation, even someone as cold as him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I think Avon definitely feels bad about it, and Avon gains some respect for him. Doesn't mean I have to forgive Tarrant.
No, you can be colder than Avon if you want.
Yes. Yes. The moment that really doesn't land for me is Slave's pastiche of Zen's death, which we're going to get to shortly.
I really like that scene.
Didn't work for me at all. totally
it's like they're trying to recreate that moment, but
they're trying to capture lightning in a bottle for a second time, and
they were. I mean, we had a lot of emotional investment in Zen. We don't have much in Slave. Do we?
I don't care about Slave. Slave just gets beat down every week.
You two are ruthless.
Yeah. I also have a bit of a problem with computers that are shutting down. They suddenly start talking, like a person who's not very well.
Well, Zen's worked because Zen, he called himself I for the first time, and Zen's worked. Slaves doesn't work.
You two are ruthless, all right?
He calls them Tarrant rather than Sir, doesn't he?
Rather than Master or Sir. And
it's Master for Avon, isn't it? And Sir for Tarrant and Villa, I suppose. I can't remember what he calls the women. I can't remember.
I don't think he really addresses.
Yeah, he doesn't really talk to them.
Too many people. Yeah. Maybe just Avon.
No, pretty much predominantly talks with Avon.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work because he doesn't have much of a personality to begin with. He doesn't have much of a backstory. He's overall pretty useless and ineffectual. And him calling Tarrant totally gives away the game to Blake. So
yeah, that's I think a good moment.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, it's a plot point, isn't it? Because Blake is listening, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
because we see Blake go, and they're wondering what the Scorpio is because they pick it up on radar, and Blake decides to go investigate.
He finds Del Tarrant sitting there. I mean, it totally could have been Dita Tarrant, and Blake would have had no idea because Slave just says Tarrant, and Del and Dita look identical. So
maybe he was dead.
Mercy Blake. I don't think he knows. He comes to realise that Tarrant is one of the team, doesn't he? But he can't know about Tarrant, can he? At this stage,
no, I don't think so.
He must only know about Avon and Villa, mustn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my notes is like earlier in the episode when Villa goes, "You found Blake, haven't you?" And Tarrant's like, "Nice, you found Blake," or something like that. And I'm like, wait, why does Tarrant care? Tarrant never met Blake. Tarrant and Blake had no interaction on this show at all, ever.
I'm sure he's heard of Blake. And knows that he's like this haunting force. But also this is like this metafictional thing of like, what do we know versus what do they know, and how does that affect?
Well, also
Blake's
Villa goes, Servalan told you Blake was dead, didn't she? And Avon's like, I don't think he's dead.
Well, and then Dana has this really strange line. She goes, well, she had no reason to lie. And first of all, why is Dana... Well, first of all, I mean, no, like, no reason to lie except the big reason of wanting to control information, which is a huge reason.
But on the other hand...
Servalan.
But on the other hand... In that episode, Servalan really didn't have any reason to lie because she expected all of them to die shortly thereafter, so no reason to control information anymore.
No, but the more, I mean, even if there's... She was covering her bases, right? Like, even if you think they're all going to die, which they didn't, but you still want to control the situation via this information. But also, why is Dana defending Servalan is the thing,
I think Dana's being the voice of reason here. Like, why would we go after Blake? That's like a horrible idea. That's going to get us all killed.
Bill says the same
sure
thing
enough. Too. Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing, Servalan lies as a first resort, doesn't she?
Yeah.
There's no point in questioning why she would lie. She just lies. That's what she's like. I mean, if there's any chance of getting some sort of advantage by not imparting a piece of information, she won't.
Mm-hmm. Right. So Avon tells Orak to start a distress signal.
Right.
And then he meets up with Villa, Dana, and Sulan, who sort of found this old like bunker type thing.
Yeah. And then Avon's like, you're going the wrong way if you want to get off this damn thing. This damn planet.
What do you think of the Scorpio crash landing in the forest?
I think the crash landing set's really good, yeah.
I really liked it.
Me too. I really like it. That had a huge impression on me at the time because obviously back then, I hadn't seen any, really good effects because they weren't around back then. So this looked fantastic for the time. I remember.
It was really dark, though, was my one complaint. Epic. Like, the lighting was very dark, and I had difficulty telling what was going on sometimes.
We had certainly certainly dark by the time they get on there. But I think there's a fair amount of light for the actual crash, isn't there? But the crash scene is really dark, isn't it? You know, when you get that. I love that set when you've got the sort of busted up interior of Scorpio, and then you've got sort of like a load of sort of earth has fallen in on the side, isn't it? And it's kind of gouged a bit of sort of grass, and so the two emerge. I think it looks excellent.
Yeah. And the busted up slave in the background looks great.
Yeah, it's
Girl
a great
slave
set.
dying. Tarrant's just kind of lying down. There's some gun runners coming, and then Blake blows them up, and then Blake's like, I saved your life, and Tarrant's like, correction, you saved your life. You said they were after you, not me. And Blake's like, ooh, you got me.
Sick burn.
But Blake decides to take Tarrant to his super secret base of bounty hunters. And he gets there and he's like, we're going to turn this guy in because he's going to bring Avon here. And somehow Tarrant passes this test, though again, it's a little unclear what exactly the test is here.
Yeah, be annoyed about being sort of arrested. Pass that test running off. Was that part of the test? I don't know. Odd.
So
incidentally, this character Clint, who is the woman who works in the sort of adjoining room,
right.
She's Janet Leigh Price. That's Paul Darrow's wife at the time, and she still is.
Oh, right.
Or she was at the time of the commentary, anyway. Don't have any exemptions.
I didn't know that.
And he gets to shoot her, which is odd.
I was about to say, like, doesn't he kill her?
Well, Blake 7 is very metafictional at times, so, maybe this is...
Wait a minute, what are you implying there? What are you implying?
He begged Chris Boucher to let him kill her.
Yeah, you think when Paul Darrow's having, like, a spat with his wife, he goes into his, like, little man cave and puts on footage of him murdering her in Blake 7?
on repeat. Yeah. Well, I'm amazed they're still together, really. You think they had some sort of lasting psychological damage for that marriage. But they pulled through, and good for them.
Well, Tom Baker and Lala Ward didn't pull through.
But they didn't kill each other, and that's the thing. Maybe if they had...
I guess.
Well, they kill each other with looks in almost every episode. If looks could kill, they certainly would have done.
Yeah, if looks could kill, we'd all be dead from watching that era of Doctor Who. Yeah, Avon has Aurak analyze Blake's flight path and follows him, and another flight hopper that they just like find chilling on the ground.
Well, they're attacked by bounty hunters, so maybe they steal their ship. I wasn't sure, but could be.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah.
Okay. Because it's just kind of parked on the ground, kind of out of frame, and they're like, "Look over there, space hopper."
We get the information as Blake is taking Tarrant back to the base. We get the information that Jenna is dead.
Allegedly.
According to Blake.
According to Blake.
She sacrificed herself.
She tried to like make some sort of weapons run one too many times and died.
Yeah, she hit self-destruct and she took out a load of enemy gunships with her. That's how we want Jenna to go.
Survived a ship blowing up with no reasonable way off. I don't think Jenna's dead.
Plus, we don't even know how true any of this is. Blake could just be
we don't even really
up.
know what happened to Jenna after she got on that medical ship.
Jenna is the most mysterious character on the show in terms of what happened to her at the end, how she ended up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Literally everybody else is dead except for Avon. Gan is dead. Blake is dead. Callie is dead. Villa's dead. Tarrant's dead.
I mean, if we say that Callie's dead, we can say that Avon is dead as well. I mean, there's no way that he's making it out of that.
I mean, but the thing about Callie's death is that they go in and see her body and come out, right?
Yeah, but what do they say versus what do they see versus what do we see? And what do they report versus what we see on screen? And how does that play into any of what's true?
I mean, Villa, everybody was kind of upset that Callie was dead.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I do think Callie's dead. I also do think Avon is dead. I think if you want to say Callie's dead, you also kind of have to say Avon is dead as well.
I don't think those two have to be linked at all. They look completely separate. I mean, I think Avon's dead, but I don't think those two
in
have to be
terms of
linked at
what
all.
people, I don't know. Because, I mean, just the way it's done, but then there's also, like, what they say about Callie and her last words, quote unquote. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see that there's any way that Avon makes it out.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's just
let's
going to
talk
be
about
Paul
it
book.
at the end, because
Yeah.
I think there are ways around it. But then they need a
Servland
little bit of
marches in and
hammering
makes out passionately with Avon. Well, anyway, Avon follows them into the basin. Blake's like, that must be Avon with Aurak. Turns out Blake's been off to Aurak this whole time. Kind of seems that way.
This is the last 5 minutes of the episode, and this is where it starts getting really interesting. I mean, up until this point, I was like, okay, another Blake 7 episode.
Yeah, it's a straight adventure, isn't it, up until this point, and then it gets momentous, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even with the inclusion of Blake, it's still, I don't know, it just feels so low-key.
It is low-key. It's surprisingly low-key, actually, until right at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is surprisingly
And then,
low-key.
I mean, my jaw hit the floor at the end of this. I was actually watching with my mouth hanging open. I mean, even I know I was. I knew I had spoiled this a year ago. I knew what was coming, and it still got me. Still got me 40 years later.
40 years later.
That's good. That's good. Because I can't really imagine watching that episode if you knew that they're all going to die at the end. Maybe a very different experience, but I'm glad it still had an effect on you.
Yeah, I mean, one of our listeners emailed us and said that no matter how many times they watch Blake, it still gets them.
Yeah.
So, got me. Well, I didn't have my jaw literally open, but I was like, wow, this is, wow. Wow.
I think it might be quite intense for the both of you, really, because you've watched it in such a concentrated burst, haven't you?
We basically injected Blake 7 straight into our veins.
Yeah. So you're really on top of the whole thing, and then this happens right at the end. Yeah, it's going to affect you. I mean, as I say, I watched every episode, but over much spread over a much longer period, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. But you having gone through all that in such a short space of time, and then coming to this, I can imagine it'd be a big moment.
Yeah, well,
it was for sure.
It was. But basically, we should explain what happens, because the biggest shock to me was that Dana was the first one to bite the dust after Blake. Okay, so here's where we get Avon's
here's where we get the best scene
line.
in Blake 7. This amazing scene.
I mean, I don't know if you're being like sarcastic or not, but I believe that unironically.
Yeah, as do I. And
I'm not 100% sure that Paul Darrow pulls this off, to be honest. I thought that at the time, at the tender age of 13, I thought, hang on.
Right, at 13.
Wow.
Is it true, Blake? Have you betrayed us? Have you betrayed me? I don't know. I don't think Darrow's... I mean, I love watching him, but he's just... Paul Darrow, but he's slightly hammy, I think, and I don't think he's got a huge range, but he's perfect to play Avon. Mm-hmm. Slightly cold sort of character that he is. I'm not sure he pulls this off, to be honest.
Well, first I wasn't sure where Tarrant got this idea that Blake sold them out. I guess from Blake's crappy test, which involves selling them to the Federation. Turns out Blake's test in the end undermined him.
Well, it's interesting because Diva has his own more computerized system, doesn't he, for setting what's up. He accesses all the criminal systems and stuff, and just sees who's a likely candidate to join the group. But Blake is so paranoid he can't rely on that, and he has to do some weird test to satisfy himself that these people are appropriate to join. But it's interesting that someone like Avon, who's so obsessed with computers and has such a logical mind, it's Blake's lack of logic that leads to his own downfall, killed by someone who relies on logic all the time. It's quite an interesting way for him to go, really.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't even pick up on that or think of it.
I mean, they've both had this psychotic break up to this point, and I think they did it in different ways. Blake Blake was like super lax about who he would bring onto the Liberator and who would join his crew back in Series A and B. And, and we talked about this with Maurice, how he would just like, he was super lax about everything. He would just tell everybody he's got to teleport, and he would just play into this big role. He had this psychotic break where he basically becomes obsessed with control, with controlling every variable possible, right? Is why he's got this test, why he's on this planet in the middle of nowhere, building the supposedly perfect army to fight back against the Federation. He controls everything. He rejects
pretty much everyone.
He rejects everyone. He rejects giving control to computers, which is, again, he was super lax about using Aurak and Zen, but now he's like rejecting using this computer to do the tests. He doesn't even have a computer.
Yeah, it's consistent, isn't it? It's not like a sudden character change just to make this episode work. So that's it's consistently written. That's the great thing about having a script editor who's there for every single episode, isn't it? That kind of stuff. You get that kind of level of consistency, don't you?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, Blake goes like he goes overboard and like he wants to control everything, whereas Avon, when he has his break, goes
underboard.
he kind of goes the opposite direction. He kind of goes super hands off. This week and last week, he just opens up to everybody else for ideas. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. He's trying to give everybody else. He's trying to build that alliance last week he kind of shove responsibility for the Federation onto everybody else. He doesn't even think of how to get off Scorpio when they're flying down, because he's just like, paralyzed by, I don't know if it's fear, if it's this like desire to give control away. I don't know. He becomes increasingly reliant on Aurak this season, even though when Aurak was introduced, Avon was the biggest opponent to Aurak.
Yeah, he didn't want him to leave him to solve every problem, did he? But they're on a terrible losing streak, aren't they, in this season?
Yeah.
So you get a stage where Avon's practically given up, and he's just like, well, I can't seem to do this myself or with the people I've got. Let's try and sort something else out. And that's happened all series really. Where they could try to get all these different experts. It's culminated, because of what happened in the week before this one. When that was his plan A, wasn't it? When that all went wrong, Blake was plan B, wasn't it? Someone else who could lead this thing and take the pressure off him. And maybe he wants to do what he wanted to do early on and just get out of all this and find a remote planet, with a ton of cash and stay there in safety.
I mean, again, like I said, it's Avon trying to give control away. He's like, at this point, he's like, well, I can't do this. Let's get Blake back. Let's give Blake the reins of the sleigh back again, right, so to speak. Let's put Blake in charge so I don't have to make all these decisions anymore.
Yeah. I think it works. I think it's consistent with how it's gone for him being in charge. He never wanted to be in charge. It's only circumstances that
he did a pretty good job in Series C. Let's give him some credit here.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying he didn't do well, but it's not something he wanted. It just happened. And the writing changes slightly, doesn't it? When he has to fill a slightly Blake-shaped hole, doesn't he? And Tarrant fills the rest of it, I suppose. He changes a little bit, but you can kind of see that people step up to the plate, don't they, when situations change, and he's clearly a natural leader more so than all the others. You can imagine that happening. It doesn't jar in the slightest.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, then Avon has his, you betrayed me? Did you betray me? And then he tells Blake to stand still. He's like, stand still. And then he shoots Blake 3 times.
The last, because Blake says like something along the lines of, well, don't you see, I set all this up, and then for us, and then Avon goes, yes, and then he shoots him. But that yes, there's a moment of hesitation, and I was like, okay, he gets what's going on. He's like, yes, Blake hasn't betrayed me, yes. But then he shoots him.
Well, Blake doesn't help himself, does he? I mean, he says all these ambiguous things.
No,
he should just say, like, whoa, let me explain what's happening.
Let me explain.
Yeah, but he says a ton of ambiguous stuff and he gets shot,
3 times.
Yeah.
In the stomach, and he bleeds. He bleeds.
Right.
Yeah, well, that makes you wonder, doesn't it, slightly about all these other deaths nobody ever does.
Yeah, that's my way out of this. Nobody else bleeds when they get shot.
Except that one guy in...
No, but I mean in this episode.
No.
Blake bleeds, he dies. Nobody else bleeds. That's my way out of it.
Oh, wow. Well, what if Blake's not actually dead either?
Blake's
we don't know for
Blake's got a pretty big freaking hole in his chest. He's dead.
It's ruined his day at the very least.
Well, he gets shot by a Federation gun, so he goes out in that way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else does, and they don't bleed, so...
But, yeah, the only problem with that is you've never seen Federation troopers stun anyone before, have we? I don't think.
Yeah, but...
We've seen them miss.
Yeah, we've seen them miss. But they're all just faking it.
They're just falling down like, whoa, that was a close shot. Like, glad I fell out of the way.
I'm dead.
And I stopped, dropped, and rolled out of the way.
Well, the big surprise here is that Dana's the first to go down of the Kellic
she
crew.
did not deserve to be the first.
Sulin should have been the
Dana
first,
was
in my opinion.
the most innocent out of all of them.
Should have been Sulin, in my opinion.
Why? Because no one cares about her.
Well, because she's the most recent addition to the crew. So, thematically...
First to go. Yeah, exactly.
Thematically, that would have made more sense to me. Or if
what does that mean?
Or if Avon had died first, and they went like in reverse order, and then it went Avon, Villa, and Sulin was left. Just kind of a thematic parallel to like the order they joined the crew. I don't know.
Well, it needs to be one of the weapons experts, doesn't it? Because they've been forced to drop the guns, haven't they? Mm-hmm. And Dana goes for the gun,
right?
To shoot Ireland, doesn't she?
Yeah, I mean the reason why I think Sulin
doesn't make it
is a lost in, first out kind of thing, right? Go Sulin, Tarrant, Dana. Villa, Avon.
Tarrant gets to redeem himself.
They have to be killed in the reverse order of their arrival on the ship.
But Tarrant does.
They should have stopped the troopers and say, whoa, no, let's do this in order, please.
Oh, back up.
You can't just do that.
You can't just do this. It works for the doctor. Whoa.
They'll just walk into the centre of the room. You know, they check the times that they arrived on the programme, then step in the centre of the room and allow themselves to kill.
Yeah, that means Villa would be the last, by the way.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, he would be. Yeah. But it's it's a horribly shocking scene. It's almost ritualistic, isn't it? Because everyone gets to shoot one person and then get shot themselves, don't they?
Yeah. They put up a fight.
One thing that...
Actually, that's a lie. Dana doesn't get to shoot anyone. Dana goes for the gun and gets shot before she gets to pick it up. Villa's the one who incapacitates Arlen by elbowing her in the face.
Yeah, he gets some moves, doesn't he, all of a sudden? And the only problem with that scene, I love when he does that, the only problem with that is he says sorry, doesn't he?
Yeah, Villa's never been shown to be an extremely violent person.
Yeah, I don't like that moment. But,
maybe he says sorry because Dana's not actually dead, but he just concussed Arlen and killed her.
Wow, you're really reaching for them to still be alive. You were really grasping at
set to stun.
let me help you up. Sorry about that. I thought you killed her, but clearly you haven't. So sit down, have a cup of tea. You'll be fine.
Well, they all die. And then Avon gets surrounded by Federation troopers. There's kind of this hilarious moment where Avon's just surrounded by Federation troopers and he looks around.
Arlen sort of reveals herself. That's before they all get killed.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, this is when her voice is supposed to change to sort of Federation style. But, yeah. But because it was like that to start with, it didn't work.
I kind of thought it was
nice. Sorry.
No, go on. Yeah, I was just going to repeat something from earlier.
I was just going to say something about the camera movement. They do a great sort of 180 pan around Paul Darrow, don't they, to take in every single Federation trooper that's walked in to point their weapons at.
Yeah, this is great. This is a great way to end the show. When we watched Terminal, I was like, I don't know if Blake's going to be able to top this, but I think it did.
Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, he slowly raises his gun as a 6-shooter, of course, upholding the tradition.
Blake holds his gun the same way earlier on in the episode. I don't know if you noticed that.
Didn't notice that. Avon.
Maybe Gareth Thomas is a Western fan as well. I like the way that Avon stands over Blake's corpse, doesn't he? And it's quite ambiguous, isn't it? Is he protecting him? Is he sort of triumphant, or is he? For a second, I thought he's going to claim that he killed Blake for the Federation.
Yeah, that's
what second.
Right. That's almost what it's shot to imply.
Then he raises his gun and
He kind of smirks a little bit.
he smiles. Cut to credits as we hear gunshots overplayed over the credits.
But yeah, aims very carefully at something, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then smiles. It looks like he's got some sort of plan, doesn't it?
He knocks out the lights. And all those gunshots of the Federation troopers shooting wildly in the dark.
Well, he knocks out the lights and then lies on the floor and they will shoot each other.
Yeah. That's actually what I was thinking when the credits were rolling. It's like, what if they're all just shooting each other? Because Avon just ducked. That's why you never completely surround a target.
Yeah, exactly. It's very
never cross your own line of fire.
Yeah, indeed. The other thing is, of course, that is it Clyn, Paul Darrow's wife character? She's called people into that room, hasn't she? She's called security.
You kind of wonder what security there is.
Just before she's killed.
We haven't seen any other people.
You hear a ton of different sort of laser guns going off, and there's several different types. You wonder if security arrives and starts taking out Federation troopers.
Just in time to save Avon.
There are definitely ways out for Avon. There's also the metafictional thing of Blake 7, which Series D hasn't done to the extent that Series C did, but also he points into the camera and shoots and ends the show and stuff like that. So.
I don't know what to say about Series E starts Avon sitting in a rocking chair on a house, and someone's like, and that's what happened. Then Will walks in and is like, that's not what happened at all.
Well, you might be interested because you're going to listen to The Way Forward, are you? Going to listen to The Way Ahead.
Yeah.
The Way Ahead, is it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, bear that in mind when you start listening to that.
Nice.
Not a million miles away from what happens in that story.
Nice.
Spoilers. Sorry. Yeah. The other thing is there's far too many gunshots over too long a time, aren't they, for Avon to have shot a couple of times and then be killed by all the troopers.
Right. You'd think the first gunshot would take him out, unless all the troopers are just over eager to be the guy who claims that he was the one who killed Avon.
Yeah, there's this little cinder where Avon used to be by the end.
If there's no body, he's not dead.
Yeah.
Where's the body?
Yeah, you also have to wonder, if say Avon dies here, then does he become this sort of Blake-like figure? Does he become, the mysterious Avon? Well, not even a martyr, but someone who might still be out there, might still be alive, and nobody really knows.
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of parallels with The Way Ahead, aren't they, here? Because there's like this sort of burgeoning rebellious movement taking place. There's a Federation spy in the camp. Federation troopers come in and kill everybody. It's exactly what happened in the first episode. So it bookends the whole show quite nicely.
The cycle repeats.
The cycle repeats. Time is a flat circle.
Yeah, then Avon escapes or something, and then eventually someone will say, well, yeah, you used to lead this rebel movement.
Avon will be like, no, I didn't. That's not what happened at all. You're rewriting history.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that Servalan doesn't turn up? I think you kind of miss her, I suppose, but I think that it ends as a misunderstanding between Blake and Avon I think that really works. And I think, everyone being killed is the only way you could finish a show that is, quite bleak, isn't it? Blake 7. Mm-hmm. And that the whole idea, there's never been any real feeling that they're going to win. There aren't enough of them against this massive organisation. It's not realistic for them to win, and eventually, just by a few mistakes, people not trusting each other, people trust each other too much, it's all over.
I mean, it's
a very interesting way for it to end, I think.
Right. I mean, throwback to the line where Blake one time was like, "You're going to be the death of me, Avon."
Right. And the thing is, I think actually not including Servalan or the Federation until the very end, right, with all the troopers, is actually more effective in a way because they destroy themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the intervention of Arlen and the troopers at the end, but really take them out of the equation, and you can still imagine that something similar would have happened.
Yeah, I mean, just on the strength of Tarrant saying that he'd betrayed them, that Blake had betrayed them, might have been enough for all this happening if the Federation hadn't even been on the planet.
Right. Tarrant's kind of the guy who sets off Blake's death when you think about it. Just classic Tarrant being.
But it's Blake himself as well, all right?
I mean, but it's Tarrant's the one who misunderstood everything here with Blake's stupid test. And,
Yeah, well, Blake does
it's-
make it easy. He makes it
Nah.
easy for people to misunderstand what he's up to, doesn't he? That's the problem.
Plus, I forgive Tarrant, so I'm not going to hold it against him here.
you should though.
He redeems himself. He fights
He
his way
redeems
out
himself,
more
but
than
immediately unredeems himself by claiming Blake sold them all out.
Well, from his point of view, he did. He's not lying.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it good.
man.
You'll forgive him one day, I'm sure. You have to let
you just
go.
need time.
Just
Let Tarrant into your heart.
The great healer.
Time heals all wounds.
Except for Blake's, but look at that.
Except
Apparently
for
that's...
terminal wounds.
Yeah, apparently that was a condom full of stage blood attached to a metal plate on Gareth Thomas's stomach.
Nice.
Brilliant.
So there you
I
go.
mean, there's a hole in the shirt where the shot went through. That's why I'm pretty sure he's dead, because I'm pretty sure it's that hole continues through the person inside the.
I think they're all dead.
Outfit.
I think they're all dead.
I think there should be a massive exit wound at the back as well, and maybe some spatter on the wall behind him.
Oh god!
Yeah, just to make it absolutely sad. But I mean, Gareth Thomas said he would only come back to the show if he was definitively written out of it. And that's what happens here. They couldn't make it any plainer, could they?
Well, I think of all them,
there's a
Blake's
Blake
got
clone out there.
the least way out. There's also that Blake clone.
Which could have been this guy.
Yeah.
You know, you never know.
Everybody forgets about the Blake clone.
That's an argument I've seen, is that this was just the Blake clone, not actually Blake.
Well,
The real Blake died when Servalan claimed.
Maybe. Who knows? I think they're all dead, and I think this was the real Blake. That's
I don't
my
think
opinion.
Jenna's dead.
Well, I think
of
all
all them
the
Jennas-
characters in this episode, Avon, Blake, Dana, Sulin, Tarrant, Villa, I think they're all dead. Jenna, I don't know.
Blake only mentions Jenna to see if he gets a reaction from Tarrant, doesn't he? 'Cause he's trying to work out whether he's part of Avon's group, isn't
Yeah.
he?
Yeah.
Because he mentions it and he takes him the sideways look, doesn't he? And sure enough, he does make a big reaction with Jenna's mention. So, I mean, he could have made it all up, but I don't know. I believe it. I believe that she's gone as well.
They're all dead.
They're all dead.
This is British sci-fi. You don't get happy endings.
Doctor Who has happy endings sometimes. Unless you're Adric, who'll never know if he was right or not.
The main character's died 13 times or something.
Well, and Donna had her mind erased. Forgot about that. Rose got stuck in a parallel universe.
Yeah, but she made out like a bandit with everything she ever wanted. Her
true.
AU family, her AU doctor.
That's a happy ending, surely.
It's true. Rose got literally everything she wanted. The spoiled, entitled little
Russell T. stand-in.
Russell T. Mary Sue. There was a different word I wanted to put there that I can't air live on the podcast.
Get the bleeper out.
We should get a physical, just bleep button so that we don't have to edit it in. We can just say whatever we want and play the sound over what we say.
That reminds me of a bit in the IT crowd where they've got a physical beeper and the boss turns to the beeper guy and is like, quick work on the beeper, but then later in the episode he completely misses beeping a swear word. Anyway, that's Blake for you.
Brilliant episode. Really good. Really
I
good
think
ending.
it was great.
Yeah.
Not my favorite of Series D, but great. I definitely do see the uptick that people were talking about at the end, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Quality.
Right, yeah.
Series D still, I know a lot of people love Series D, but I can't just get behind it that easily because of how weak I think the beginning of the series was.
Yeah, I don't think it's my least favourite Series D, to be honest. But yeah, it's still got lots of good moments in it.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
I really like all of it. That's the thing. So, I mean, although it's my least favourite, it's not, it's not terrible. It's just not as good as the others, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Terry Nation, how would Terry Nation do Blake?
Yeah, Servalan would be in this 110%.
Yeah, she'd been. I think, knowing him and his eye on the holy dollar, that there would be a much more obvious way of carrying the show on. I think,
Oh, yeah, that too.
Well, I mean, it would be terminal, right? That's Terry Nation's
yeah.
way of ending the show.
Terry Nation tried to scrap up funding for Series E, I found out, allegedly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at that point,
I think.
But at that point, I think
he
it
would have
was.
left open-ending.
Yeah. Terry would have left it way more open. He would have brought in Serverland for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
It would have ended with some sort of confrontation between Serverland and... I don't even think Blake would come back, though.
It would have been much more similar to Terminal.
Yeah.
I think even if Blake had come back, and I don't think Terry would have completely ruled that out.
But I don't think Terry would have done it again,
similar.
right? Because he did it in Terminal.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Terminal wasn't the real Blake, so... Or was it?
Well, the thing that Terry Nation... The thing that Terry Nation would be fighting against is the fact that the actor didn't want to come back anymore. So, to have a chance of having him in the show again, I think you'd take that chance, but you would have to write him out. Otherwise, he wouldn't come back. So I think it wouldn't be Terry Nation's decision whether Blake would have lived at the end of this.
You're right.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But Serverland would have been 100%. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if she died in this.
Yeah, he could have done that. I mean, he did that technically in Terminal. I mean, Chris Boucher was the one who kind of brought Serverland
Kill
back.
off the greatest villain he ever wrote?
Really?
Well,
More
actually,
than Davros?
Davros is better than Serverland, but Serverland's a close second. Very close second. Actually, no, I would put Serverland above Davros if you count all of the appearances of Davros. If you count just Genesis, then yeah, Davros is stronger. Really, I mean, you're laughing, but really though.
Yeah, but I think the same thing happened to Serverland. I think Serverland became a really weak character.
But
in
not,
Series D.
but not. She didn't fall as hard as Davros did. I mean, by destiny of the Daleks, Davros was just.
But I mean, I think he would have killed her off. I mean, he did in Terminal. She was in a ship that was blowing up. I mean, yeah, he had her run to the teleport room, but realistically, think about what Terry must have been thinking. Where would she actually teleport to? Plus, the teleport room wasn't working anymore.
He just sees her. He's watching Series D. He's like, "Oh, come on!" Finds out Sleer is Serverland.
Well, the interesting thing is, of course, that was written at the end as the end of the show, wasn't it? Terminal. Yeah. That was going to be it. Whereas this, Chris Boucher wrote it as a big cliffhanger because he was still hopeful there would be a fifth series. So there's two different approaches to those two episodes, isn't there? So in a way, Serverland's perhaps more likely to live in this episode than she would be on that one.
Right.
And they both. That's actually strange now that you bring that up because these two episodes, Terminal and Blake, both seem to have the opposite effect of what they intended. Right.
Yes. Yeah. True. They both have destroyed the ships as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Both.
Scorpio's gone and dead. Borax in the forest somewhere.
Dead computers everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that actually wraps up everything I have to say on Blake. I'm saving some thoughts on the show as a whole for a little bit later.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a retrospective where we probably do an overview of the season in brief, I guess. Or sorry, season. Or sorry,
series.
Show.
Series. We do have an email from Sergeant Drano if you want to join us for that quickly.
Okay, yeah.
Jim?
Go for it.
All right, Sergeant Drano, Blake. Hey, guys. So, Blake, I swear, that guy. And at last, we come to the infamous end, more or less. What can I tell you about this one? Well, I can tell you the first time I saw this episode, I didn't see this episode. I was in high school at the time and was required to go to bed before the episode was going to air. For some reason, I didn't have a VCR I could program at the time, so the best that I could do was to record this episode on an audio cassette. So the very first time I experienced this episode, all I got was the audio, and I did not know beforehand that this was the last one. However, shocker, it was literally years before I was able to watch this episode for real via my coveted commercially released VHS collection, and the attached picture of it. So the crew abandons Zen on base, scorched earth style. Avon has a new idea for a figurehead, and Villa guesses Blake. Blake is looking a little rough, got that scar, looks like he's been eating at McDonald's a little more. Still got some baggy sleeves though. A girl
carrying some extra timber in this one.
A girl shows up and Blake offers her some of his McRib, but it's a trick. Blake is a bounty hunter.
McRib.
Sulin backstory. Gauda Prime is her home planet. Hay finally gets some rare interplay between Orek and a ship's computer. Good stuff. Orek, a formal application was laid before the High Council on Earth within the last 30 days. I can get you the exact date. Slave, I don't wish to interrupt, Master. Orek, then kindly don't. Slave, I wasn't talking to you. Orek, you were attempting to override a superior system. Be silent. Even more delicious considering it's the same actor talking to himself.
Yeah.
Polished off with Avon's famous thieves, killer, mercenary, psychopath speech. Glorious. See attached another picture. And then the space poop hits the space van as Scorpio is jumped by ships over Gauda Prime. Villa comes up with the teleport idea, and we really get a sense of finality as Tarrant demonstrates some piloting skills for once. Avon says goodbye to Tarrant as he and Aurak teleport off. Pretty spectacular model work in the Scorpio crash footage as Tarrant's console slides around like bumper cars, and he Wilhelm screams off stage right. Scorpio looks total as Slave gives a sad farewell report that no one hears. His last word is Tarrant, which might be the saddest last word ever.
I agree, Sergeant Drano.
Unless you mean saddest as in like lamest.
She probably does mean that way.
And at last they meet Blake and the blander, weaker, less interesting version of Blake. Ironically, neither knows who the other is, or do they? Meanwhile, Avon murders a couple of guys and everybody gets on flyers and flies. Blake does a callback to Jenna, claiming that she self-destructed while running a blockade. Villa, sooner or later, we're going to drop into one of these holes in the ground and never come out. Sooner or later, everyone does that. Villa, Blake
there's loads of mentions of death in this episode, aren't there, before it all happens?
Yeah.
Right. Blake delivers Tarrant, reveals that he heard Slave and knows who Tarrant is. Tarrant manages to run off, and we get the reveal that Blake is actually recruiting a new resistance, but unfortunately Blake has some major trust issues these days, and it's going to cost everyone. Tarrant finds the crew, tattles on what he thinks he knows, and tragedy ensues. Avon's got trust issues too, and just can't cope with the possibility that Blake may have betrayed him, but apparently they're all left anyway since Arlen turns out to be the Federation. Troops swarm in, and the song What You Say swells in the background as our characters are gunned down one by one. Avon gets to do his cowboy thing one last time, grins, and we cut to credits with gunfire blasting. Wow. Like many fans at the time, it was really hard for me to accept that they're all dead. Fans would come up with inventive theories as to how some of them or all of them might survive. It's been said that the end was left a little ambiguous precisely for that purpose, except for Blake's bloody gunning down by Avon. Apparently, Harrison Ford insisted that his character would be definitely killed off so they would not have any way to bring him back in other terrible sequels. It's an interesting sidebar you got going on there, Drano. It's something that was unusual for a series to do and certainly remains one of the most famous or infamous aspects of Blake 7. Trivia, the character Klein was played by Janet Lee's Price, wife of Paul Darrow. Jim mentioned that. I'm fairly certain that Avon guns her down in this episode, meaning that Paul Darrow killed his wife on screen. Nice, yeah, we made a lot of jokes about that. So what do you think? Sounds like both of you were spoiled on the general outcome of this, if not the specifics. That's a bit unfortunate. I'll never forget the impact it had on me going in blind the first time. It's not a perfect episode, but still some very strong moments. I'll definitely round it up to 7 out of 7. Now that you've seen it, it's time for you to watch this. It's a link to Lex, Season 1, Episode 1.
Wow.
Looking forward to the way forward, getting my alternate Series E ready. Thank you, namaste, and good luck. Sergeant Jana Station 7, the door. P.S. Speaking of the way forward, I again urge you to give Lex a shot. I think it'd be an excellent fit. Submitted for your approval, part 1 of the epic story that is Lex. I actually think that first YouTube video is something different, and that my email client is just displaying it as the second YouTube link, which is Lex. Let me actually see what this first YouTube link is, just at the end here, at the end of this episode. Blake 7, the story of Avon and Blake. I don't really want to watch the 3-minute video right now. We'll come back to that later. And then I could be wrong, but I suspect you have difficulty taking your eyes off it. Okay, so that's our email from Sergeant Drano. And that wraps up Blake episode. Thank you, Sergeant Drano. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.
For finding the time to be on with us. I know it was a bit of a struggle to figure out how to get you on the show, but I'm really glad we were able to figure it out in the end.
Definitely.
Well, we couldn't have left it any later, could we?
There's still one more episode you could have been on.
Yeah, I guess so.
No, but I'm really glad we figured it out.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah, it's great. I know. I really enjoyed that. It's I've really enjoyed listening to you. Throughout all these Blake 7 episodes. It's been really good fun. I'm glad to actually get on it as well. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for being on. All right, so it's a week since we recorded with Jim. We have one pretty short email from RG that includes a fantasy Blake 7, which you guys will be able to actually listen to because it's an audio in a couple weeks, and a couple quick points about Blake that we just want to hit here and get in this episode, since this is the episode about Blake. So the only things I have to say about Blake are, one, I finally got to see Blake. It had always been Avon's 5 for me as I started watching in Series C. Blake was in Terminal, though. Blake was in Terminal. Not Terminal was the end of Series C, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Blake was in there.
Yeah, he was. Huh. But maybe that was just the Blake. Well, it wasn't. Garrett Thomas was in.
But she's saying she finally got to see Blake.
Yeah. Well, Blake himself. We don't know who that was in Terminal.
Well, it looked like Blake.
We don't know who it was in Blake either.
Blake
Really?
made up the most complicated system to determine whether or not someone was working for the Federation. 3, who would have ever thought that would go wrong? 4, did you forget that Avon hated his guts? Why on earth didn't he realize he would get shot? Maybe he did. Maybe he wanted to die. 5.
No, I don't think. Well, yeah, there was a love-hate relationship between Blake and Avon.
5, I was in complete shock when the episode came to a close. I just sat there for a couple minutes with my mind going, what is this? I don't even... I did that with an audio drama I listened to one time. 6, I was sure that Serverland would step out of somewhere and commend her troopers for finishing off Blake's crew. It was a real shame not to see you in the final episode. Yeah, but I think it would have been too bloated if she'd shown up.
I think, we sort of touched on that, our own opinions, which you don't have to agree with.
Oh, boy. Thank you for all your time you spent making your Zenith podcast. It's been a highlight of each week for me. If you decide to do another new podcast, for example, Space 1999, hint, hint, I look forward to hearing more of your insight and humor. Down and oh god, not the Federation, arg, RG.
Well, thank you, RG, for helping make the podcast better, both by corresponding with every week and being on the podcast itself.
Right. Thank you for being a valued member of the community. We value all the members of our community. I don't want to... Anyway,
but actually, like, all the correspondence and engagement we've got with Zenith has actually motivated us to care about this podcast.
To care about this podcast and try and make it better. And it was a real big surprise about how much correspondence we got from this podcast. I guess coming from Trust Your Doctor, where we barely got any.
Yeah.
Just to see all these people so passionate about Blake 7 reaching out. And it made the podcast a lot more fun, in my opinion, too.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of sad it's coming to an end. So that's it for correspondence this week. Presumably you'll have already listened to, based on how I edit this, our response to Sergeant Drano with Jim. And before we cut back to that, we just got one quick note we want to put in here about just Gisette Simon Dana controversy.
Yeah, this has been sort of a point of contention, and I think that contention stems from 2 pieces of information that were not put together. So I don't want to go back and revise anything or try and rewrite what anyone said. For sure, don't want to do that. I just want to put 2 things together. So just read off here. Some sources out there, including IMDb, have claimed that Simon has not returned for audios, Blake 7 audios that is, because she found the role of Dana sexist and racist. That Simon has repeatedly denied these claims. Her explanation for years has been that she basically wants to move forward as an actor. So that's what she's said. Mm-hmm. And, we're not here to indoctrinate anyone. You can believe whatever you want based on information. And
right.
Yeah, but again, don't want to revise anything that anyone said. Just wanted to put those 2 pieces of information together. And again, thank you to both of the people who provided that information.
Right. And I guess the main takeaway is that Gisette Simon doesn't want to return to the role. And you can believe what you want about what reasoning behind that. But
and
that's up to you to decide, really.
Right.
We're not going to tell you what's fact.
Yeah, I have my own beliefs about this, which I'm not going to disclose.
My own ideas about this, but anyway. So now, with that out of the way, back to us closing out the episode with Jim. And if you'd like to shamelessly plug yourself, your podcast, this is your time. This is your shining moment, Jim.
Right, everyone turn off now. You don't want to hear this. I do the Crinoid podcast with my friend Martin. We do... it's similar in format to this, isn't it, really? But it's a classic Doctor Who episode each month. It's a monthly podcast, and Martin and I go into far too much detail on every little bit about the each episode. 112 episodes in so far. We've got a long way to go, but it's fun. They're long podcasts, so if you have in time for half-hour podcasts, we might not be for you, but if you like long walks or you have a long commute, then we might be exactly what you want. So it's the Crinoid podcast, Krynoid. Crinoid podcast is named after a big leafy monster in Doctor Who, and you can look us up on Facebook and Twitter under that name. Thanks very much. The plug is over.
Thank you very much. If you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry events, love letters. Get your thoughts in soon so we can get them into the final episode of the show. Your fantasy, Blake 7, etc.
Who do you think lived in this? Who do you think died? Is Avon dead?
I mean, I
What's
think
going
they're all
on?
dead, but my fantasy series, they all live, and that's why it's called fantasy. I think realistically they're all dead. But anyway, you can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Zenith, a Bullock 7 podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you liked the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be listening to the 40th anniversary audio, The Way Ahead. But thanks again, Jim.
Thank you again, Jim, for being on. I had a
thank
great
you.
time. I'll speak for
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it is well. And until then, the end.